So today marks 24 hours before the end of what has been the most intense 2 to 3 months of my entire life. And I say that almost regrettingly because I loved the intensity of it. And in a way, I wish that I could pledge every day of my entire life because to, to pledge is similar to being an entrepreneur. It's having constant activity all the time, constant challenges and learning experiences. And I've loved every single moment of it, even the awful ones. And from that experience, I've gotten a couple of lessons, actually about 10 written here. And these are what I think are the most important ones for me to share with you. I'll just list them because it's going to be the fastest way to express what I want to say. First, people are infinitely more complex than they appear. The difference between the 15 people I met in the beginning of the quarter and the 10 people I know now is unimaginable. I have never got to know so many people so quickly in my entire life, and so in depth too. So again, people are infinitely more complex than they appear. First impressions are deceiving, and yet we rely on them so much for our judgment of who a person is, or what their value is. Another thing that I've learned is that conflict is often the most efficient way to get to the root of a problem, and that you shouldn't avoid confronting someone or confronting a problem just because it's uncomfortable or you're scared of it. We had a ton of issues this quarter, but they were not exceptional issues. They were life issues. There was nothing that happened this quarter that we couldn't have an answer to, that we couldn't answer ourselves if we come together and we address the issue. And I think ultimately the most efficient way to do that was to just take it head on, or to take the person head on. And it didn't involve backstabbing, and it didn't involve gossip and rumors. It was simply, we have this problem or this opportunity to grow, and we want to talk about it, and we want to deal with it. So learning to face conflict and confrontation, I think, was really important for a lot of people. Um, I also learned that, on this note of people being more complex than they seem, that we have a combination of selves, and this whole myth that we have one unified self, one that we're this one consistent person all the time, that's bullshit. Because met I've hung out with these people, these 10 other people or 9 other people throughout the quarter in every different context possible, as teammates, as friends, as brothers. And I can tell you honestly that the person one is depends almost entirely on the context. Yes, we have this consistent idea of who we are, that we tell ourselves, this consistent story. But when it really comes down to it, we are totally different depending on who we're with and what we're doing. So it's really important as a member of society and as a member of a team or a family to realize that people are different depending on the context, and that you shouldn't have expectations for who they should be all the time. It's not your job to dictate who a person is, and you also don't have to dictate who you are. You change depending on where you are and who you're with. So be more lenient with yourself. I also learned that uh, progress depends on cooperation. So there's a cooperation between all these different selves within me. I mean, I can't be one person here and an entirely different person in another context, saying two totally opposite things just depending on who I'm with. So we have to cooperate with ourselves. We have to have something of a consistency, and in the same way, we have to cooperate with others. Just because we're not with someone doesn't is not a legitimate excuse for talking behind their back, or uh, not helping them out, or whatever it is. It's cooperation is fundamental for progress, and I really got to learn that over this quarter. I mean, it sounds trite, but I don't think people really appreciate how codependent we are, how co-reliant we are. And when you really start to think about it, that humans wouldn't be anything if it weren't for other humans. That's amazing. And when you realize that, you realize that you have to work with people, even people you don't like, or people who you don't appreciate, or who you have conflict with. You have to realize that even those people, you're co-reliant upon them in some way. And once you realize that, it's really important to act on it. And now just on a couple of the lighter things. Uh, if I didn't already mention that there's a huge difference between talking about doing something and then actually doing it, I'd like to just stress that. That is what it is to be an entrepreneur. It's to have this random idea, to have this dream, this belief, and then actually go out and do it. Maybe you don't achieve it, maybe you don't actually get to the end, but you go out and you try to, and you make an effort to achieve that thing, and that's what it is to be an entrepreneur. And I really believe that entrepreneurship is a philosophy, it's a way of life, and you can be an entrepreneur and still work for someone else. Or, yes, a slave could be an entrepreneur, because it's the idea of applying, it's the practice of applying what you think to what you do. And I think that's really important and underemphasized. So another thing, horror films are way scarier in other languages, especially Japanese. And group messaging is literally the worst thing to happen to social media since MySpace. There has not been more than an hour this entire quarter that I have not received some kind of buzz, text, whatever, because of group messaging. And as much as I love being in constant contact with everybody, I can tell you honestly, I can't wait to just be able to sit and not have my phone vibrating, because I'm a part of this conversation that's talking about any sort of random thing. I mean, literally, group text is awful. It's effective, but it's awful. And I also learned that anyone that joins a fraternity is kind of crazy. And there's part of that person that likes pain and suffering. You have to realize that they're not going to be afraid to make you suffer too, usually. Um, that is kind of an unexpected lesson, but you have to be a little bit crazy to do all this, to risk failing your classes and to commit so much time to something you don't even understand or comprehend fully. And uh, beware of those kind of people, and beware of yourself for being one of those people, for putting yourself in that situation. Um, as I said in the beginning, the last 3 months have been the most intense, meaningful 3 months of my life. And from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank the fraternity and the actives for, I can't say encouraging us, but for making us do this, I guess. As simple as that, for subjecting us to this. Because I learned more about not just other people, but myself than I ever have. And I really do thank you for that experience. I look forward to being your brother. And I think every person in our pledge class is more worthy than me, and more worthy than any other person I've ever known to become a brother. And I'm really proud of us for that. Yeah, that's it. So thank you. And this is what I've learned in 2013, Sigma Eta Pi's 2013 pledge class.